I made a shape, I made a letter, and both of my letters will line up along the edge that I want to morph them on. For shapes, hey, how's it going, Gabby? Okay, for shapes, morphing will always work best if you've got a common point for them to go to. You don't want them flying all over the place. Like if this letter B was over here, then they would, as it's morphing from the A to the B, it would move across the screen. That's not the effect that I want. So I'm going to line those up at the corner that I'm going to start from. And I just turned my text into outlines. And just so I have some more space here, I am going to shy these, or shy enable. You click the little face up there and that will show and hide all the layers that you shied. Just if you're shying things, make sure you've got the eyeballs turned off as well as the volume, because that will render. So make sure you've got that going. Okay, so we've got our two letters, and mine are Barlow 360. You could use, yes, Carmen, well, that'll do it. You know, it's technology, you don't use that frequently. Okay, so for this to work, you're going to want your shapes, like I said, to line up at a corner. Yeah, line up at the corner and roughly be about the same size. The reason we're going to do a capital letter A morphing into a capital letter B, hey there, Eric, is because I want you to focus on morphing shapes, and you'll notice there's this outside shape and then the negative space. And then the letter B has two different types of negative space. So we're going to have to plan for that when we're animating. All right. So Eric, all we did was we just have a letter A and a letter B. We lined them up at the corner and we made them outlines. They must be outlines. All right. So most of the class is here and we're going to start on this. We're going to go layer new and then shape layer. And that's not popping up on there. So let me try it down here. Layer new, shape layer. Let's see if you can see it from there. Second. Just watching the stream with the delay to see which menus pop up and which don't, because Adobe doesn't really like you streaming their stuff that much. Okay, so where can I make the letter an outline? Oh, that's okay. That's an easy one. So I'll just do a letter J for Joe. And here's your text letter. You just right click on the text letter and choose create shapes from text. Okay, you're going to want shapes, not a mask. Sometimes you want masks, sometimes you want shapes, but for tonight we're working with shapes. So again, you click your type layer, right click, go create shapes from text. And I'm going to hide the letter B from this. Inside the A, let me hide the B, we've got two shapes. And I'm going to start the lesson here from scratch with the pen tool. I'm just going to quickly make my own letter A. And then I'm going to draw a quick letter, let's just say D. Like that. Okay. And the way this technique works, I've got two shapes. Okay. And they're basically lined up. And I'm going to want to go from one path to the next. And the most important part for this is, I'm going to show you, I've got my pen tool selected so that I can select a certain point on the path, because it wasn't letting me select it otherwise with my tool. And with that one point that I want selected, I'm going to right click and choose mask and shape path and then set first vertex. So with that one point selected, I set my first vertex, and this is going to be where the motion is driven out of. So on my other shape that I'm going to, you see it's not letting me select the individual point, so I'm going to use my pen tool, and now I've got it selected. So now I can go back to my select tool, right click, and on this one I'm also going to go mask and shape path, set first vertex. So my two shapes line up, and I've set the first vertex for each of them. And I'm going to hide that little thing in the background. So what's going to happen is I'm going to open up my shape path for the first one and set a keyframe, and then move forward in time to the next one. And I'm going to put a keyframe for this one. I'm going to copy the keyframe from the second shape that I just made and paste it into the first shape I made. So I've got the original shape, and then this is the second shape that I made. I paste them both into the shape path to get that type of animation, morphing from one to the next. And I set my first vertex to the same part in the corner. So again, after I set my first vertex, I just put in a keyframe for the path of the second shape. I didn't move it or anything. It's just this keyframe holds all this information, so that when I paste it into this timeline, it's going to morph on that path from one to the next, like that. And that can be used in a lot of different creative ways, going from one shape to a next. You'll see a lot of things online where people are morphing from like a tree to like a spaceship, and it's just finding similar shapes and similar points to use as your starting point. And it all begins with selecting one point that you know they both have in common and saying that is the first vertex. Otherwise, you're going to get a really wild morph. And another thing I want to cover tonight that is very, very important when you're handling stuff like this. This first keyframe is a perfect... Oh, thank you very much, Theo. Alright, so this first keyframe holds the perfect detail of this first shape. This last keyframe holds the perfect detail of the second shape, okay? I'm not going to mess around with those original shapes, but anything I do in between will be up to me creatively. So if I want to, at this point, have this move out a little bit, I can still move my anchor point, my path points, as well as the Bezier curve handles to get this moving the way that I want, instead of the way the computer's filling in the in-betweens. And that automatically creates a new keyframe. So like right here, if I don't like this shape, I can add a keyframe by the diamond, and then I can go in by holding down Shift and clicking on the one point that I want to fix, and move things around as I want to. Like that. Now, in addition to this, if we see the motion is moving backwards, there's a principle of animation called anticipation, which we've talked about. So I know it's going to be moving backwards. To brace the viewer for that motion, I can select my first shape and rotate it in the opposite direction. So first, I'm going to obviously move my anchor point. That's always step one. I'll put my anchor point over here in the corner, like that. And I'm going to start off here. And as it's starting to move backwards, I'm going to move it in the opposite direction a little bit. And then once it starts gaining some weight, move it back. That might be a little too much. And And then maybe I can have it go back even a little bit further. Then as it's finishing out the shape, then I can bring it forward with a little bit of overshoot, like having it bouncing off the ground. And doing this adds a little bit of weight to it. And obviously, clicking the word rotate to get all my keyframes selected, I can hover over and easy ease them. I'll drop down my resolution so preview's faster. Change my render area. So you can go between any shapes you like in After Effects. Just set that first vertex so that that motion follows through smoothly. And let's pretend, just for the fun of it, because I'm a bit of a glutton for punishment, let's pretend we've got an inner shape in here. So I'm gonna draw that like that, and this shape I'm going to fill with the background color like that. So now we've got the outside. I'll rename this. And obviously I could clean it up before, because we both know that this is going to animate. There we go. That's a little bit better. So I can go here, contents, click the path for that, then zip over to where that is, and add one more point to it. And this one I will make the letter D, and you see it's already changing that. And I'm going to use the convert first vertex. So I've got some curves here, like that. I'm just going to adjust these to how I want them. And we'll say, oops. There we go. And I'll move this in a little bit. Now, I don't feel like copying all that keyframing. And like I said, when you're feeling lazy, a good thing is to always parent. So if I parent that, it's going to, oops, I parented it to the wrong layer. That's hysterical. Now it's rotating with it. And I can go along in here and add paths inside it as I want to. Animate that. And fix it to follow the shape as I want to. Okay. Now, doing this, I can start as it's tipping back to have the negative space moving as if there were some weight here. So it's condensing with it if I want to give even more of a sense of weight. And then as it's going forward, I can have that go past the point like this and move this in a bit, and then back a little like such, and back a little over here, and then forward a little bit. That's an example of overshoot, like we've done with the inertial bounce expression. And again, I'm going to select all these keyframes and easy ease them. Let's hit the space bar. When you've got this happening in like that, thank you very much, Carmen. This is an example of an animation technique called, what was the name I put in the slides? You can tell it's that long of a day when you can't even remember the names of things. Oh, overlap and follow through. Now I remember, okay. So, to give you an example of that, so I'm just changing the weight of the negative space to give it a little bit of volume and life. And again, this was done with just that number of keyframes. It's not very complex. It's just thinking about what you want to do and then figuring out how you want to do it. So I'm going to hit the save key there, make a new comp. And for this, I'm going to draw a little circle here, and I'll make it blue, why not? And then I'm going to use the pen tool, and I'm going to make this a little bit darker, just so you can see the difference. Like such. And I'm going to parent this to that, scale it down a little bit. Okay. So they're not the prettiest shapes. What you're going to see is we're just going to pretend that we have a rabbit. So I just quickly drew a head and I quickly drew an ear. I'm going to put this right here at the bottom, like such. Okay, so we've got this rabbit head. You know, we're going to pretend it's a perfectly drawn rabbit. And I parented the ear to the head. I'm just renaming these so that there's no confusion over what's happening. All right, now I'm going to move this back a bit, like such. And you'll see that move back in a moment when this refreshes. And then I'm going to set my keyframes and I'm going to move it forward, and it'll move that way. I'm just going to let this catch up. So all I did was, like I said, I parented the ear to the head of our rabbit, and I animated the position of the head along the x-axis. Okay, but it's looking a little, you know, unrealistic. And this is where you'll see it catch up in a second. This is where the animation principle of overlapping action and will come into play. So I want this ear to have some wiggle and continue the velocity of the head moving forward. So what I'm going to do, since I want to demonstrate this quickly to you, I'm just going to use puppet pins for this. I'm going to pin base there and there. I'm going to go forward a little bit, and I'm going to move these forward a little bit. And I'm going to move them back a little bit for a little bit of overshoot. And then I'm going to move them forward a little bit. And I'm just doing this blindly because I'm showing you the concept more than worrying about how pretty it looks. And let me ease these keyframes. You gotta get in the habit of easing your keyframes so everything looks pretty. All right, now let's check out this motion. And it'll catch up to the render in a second. It's funny, I dropped down my resolution from 4K to 2K so we could stream through After Effects faster, but so many people are on YouTube at the moment that it's slowing down the latency and we're getting some lag. Okay, so here you're going to see the same animation with a little bit of overlapping action and follow through. See the difference? How the ears keep moving after the head has stopped. That's an example of this. You see it all the time, like when people animate superheroes, the cape will move past the body once they stop running, and then it settles back. Its motion continues past the thing that it's attached to is done moving. And I've got some videos that you can click on in the slides that show this in greater detail. But are there any questions about how you can use this technique to push your animations. Like if you have a feather and a cap, it'd have the same motion. Things like that, like hair. This is really important with hair, how hair can sway past while character's still moving to give it that extra bit of life and give some nice complexity to your animations. Nope, no questions so far. Okay. And like I said, these are now in the virtual slides I made, all the things I really want to cover before the end of the semester. Oh, okay. Now we're going to get into something a little bit more light and easy. And I typed all this out in advance, so I don't even have to do any guesswork. So I'm going to make a new composition. All right. Now, I've talked before about how the shape layer is like an empty salad bowl. So I'm going to make a star. And I'll change the color of it. We'll just make it green, because that's my favorite color. All right, and then we'll set the anchor point to the middle by holding down Command or Control to snap it to a center point or an edge or a corner. Neat little trick there. So we've got our star, and if I go to the Add with the shape layer selected, you can add all these different things in the drop-down that you can't see that are in my window because Adobe won't preview them. But one of the things in there is repeater. And now you can see what the repeater does, obviously, is it repeats things. And you could change the offset, have them animate differently. Like I said, and anything with the stopwatch, you can animate. You just need to obviously be one frame apart and make a change. But the important part is down here in your transform. Like if I set this position to 0 and then I change the rotation, now I've got something completely different happening because they're going to be rotating off of that point. You could also fade them in and fade them out with your stopwatches should you choose to. It's just, you could also play around with the anchor point and animate that. So the way this would look would be, I've got 10 copies, and I'm going to set my rotation here, and then move forward a second and do that. And then I'm going to work backwards. I'm going to set this rotation to 0 so that they all line up. So all I did was I just keyframed the rotation. And that gives me that look. And you can do a lot of interesting things messing around with the repeater. They're great for motion design. And I'm going to show you a couple of things that I planned out in advance, just so I don't have to do the math. But I'm going to teach you how to do some math. Okay, so for this first demonstration, I'm going to make a rectangle. And we're going to stick with green because it's the best color there is. I've got that there. All right, now let's turn on our title save so we can see where this should be. I'm going to try and I'm going to snap the anchor point for this to the center of the screen. And it won't really let you do that because it's not connected here, so you gotta eyeball it. Okay, so that's my center point, that's on, good. Now I'm gonna just move my anchor point so it's pretty much perfect. All right, good. All right, so with this example, you're going to see that this is not touching the center point and it's pretty short. I don't know who Purple Stan is, but I'm glad that they're interested in all the things going on in the world today. No, you're wrong. Green is the best color. Okay, so since this is set to the center of the screen, when I do a radial repeat on this, it'll be a perfect circle around there, kind of like the hands on a clock. You want the anchor point the center of the screen so that they move out from there. So here's a neat little way to get some fast math in here. With my shape layer selected, I'm going to go add and then repeater again. Now, I'm going to pick the number 9, okay? And you go saying, well, if we need a circle and the circle's 360 degrees and you pick 9, 9's an odd number, how are we going to figure that out? The beauty of that is I'm going to show you how After Effects is really good with math. I'm going to set the position to 0 again. Oh, 1 second. Won't let me zero it out. That's a shame. Now let's move the anchor point. Excuse me. All right. Let's go back here, go back to our repeater. Okay, good. They're all lined up again. I had to zero out the position and the scale. Let's turn back on the thing so I can line this back up. And what I did here was I hit the letter A on my keyboard to change how this is reacting to the anchor point. That. All right. And let me move that a little bit closer. All right. So now I've got my anchor point lined up. And here's the repeater. We've got 9 copies. And I'm twirling down the transform repeater. And what we're going to do for rotation, let's try 9/360. Is that it? Find out what that was. No, that wasn't. That was 9. Where's the divide by? I forget the command for it. Second. It's funny because I don't have a extended keyboard. That's why I'm having trouble finding it. Now we know that 10 into 360 would be 36. 9 would be a little bit less than, actually be a little bit more than 36. Like that, but that is, let's make it 10. Let's try the math again. So if I go 10, oh wait. Oh, now I see why I did it wrong. Okay, so I'm gonna go back to 9. No one called me out on this. It's 360/9 for the divide. There, that's what it was. I was going backwards. I was going 9 divided by 360. All right, so that's the backslash question mark key. So I typed in 360/9 and it told me the exact rotation I need. So if I wanted to, I could click there and go back to the beginning, set that to 0. Now I've got them animating out in a circle from Radial Design. And in the samples I sent you in Canvas, one of the James Bond movies uses the repeater very effectively and creatively. That's an example of radial design. You can also make patterns out of the repeater. And to do that, okay, so I'm going that, all right. Original shape, rotate that. Oh wait, that's repeater position 191. That's funny. Thought something looked off there. Now we go into the original shape and we rotate it 45 degrees. All right, let's try that. Would that be better if we did it here under the contents? Let's try that. Yeah, there we go. So I had to do it under the contents, now I got a diamond. Just shows you could do the same thing in different areas and get different results. Star, I mean the shape here, it's a square. I'll make it purple-ish. It's about purple, fine. Okay. All right, there we go, that's better. So if I move this, I'm just going to animate the shape like this. And then the effects. This effect works if you move something and there's alpha around it, so it's good for that. It's the echo effect, and let's increase the number of echoes. And you could change the blending mode if you want. Change it to go in the front and the back. Go blend. Let's stick with the screen. The decay is how they fade on and fade off over time. And the number of echoes, I mean the time, is basically how delayed it will be in its follow through. Like that. And all these things can be keyframe that you want. It's a neat way of playing around, and like I said, messing around with the timing of it will give you different results. You could even keyframe that if you wanted. So I started over here, then by over here, change the position a little bit like that. Like such. Yep, that's true, Gabby. And Jacqueline, the beginning of the stream, I had it set to unlisted, so I had to re-stream and make it public. So you didn't miss all that much. All right, now we tackled a little bit of puppeting and character rigging. So what I would like everyone to do, let me stop this animation, is let me open up some of these. I might still have the images, so I might be able to pull them in here one moment. Oh wait, we're gonna stop it there because I just looked at the time and no one even told me it was 7:20 already. So we'll stop there and we'll tackle character rigging, parenting, and puppeting for Monday. But if anyone is doing anything with characters for their animation and they want to see some of that tonight, I will gladly show you during lab time, and I'll be answering any questions you have during the lab. So just send them my way. And Jack, I saw your storyboards, and like I was saying, Carmen, if you just take a photo of your drawings with your phone, I'll be able to review it faster than, waiting for you to redraw the whole thing. I like what you got going on here, Jack, with your storyboard, and it looks like it should be pretty interesting. If you're going to draw all this, make sure you focus on highlight and shadow and some texture for this to give it some real sizzle, but it's got an interesting style to it. I'm going to hop over to the student email real quick. Oh, here we go. Okay, so Jack, looking at your storyboard, let me make a new layer here. Okay. When you're talking about revealing the title with snakes, and let's just pretend that this is one of the snakes. Going over there. 1 second, let me mute the mic. Okay, so we'll pretend that this is one of the snakes, and let me zoom out a little bit. And I want to test something out here just for the fun of it, just because it's lab time and that's what playing around is all about. Yeah, this should work. Okay, let's give it a try. I'm going to try and keep my shape of the snake and animate the anchor point. And this is something that Tyler had done for his umbrella animation with the raindrops in the background. So it's just a matter of figuring out, getting it to move across the screen the way I want. I want it to go diagonally just for the fun of it, because nothing's ever easy. Okay, and then I'm going to have it start off the screen. Okay, so there it goes diagonally across the screen. Let's add a little life to it. Nope, that's not what we're going to be doing. Let's try, just for the fun of it, let's see what Blobble Eyes is going to do. No, it's not going to be Blobble Eyes. Doing that. Alright, so rather than try and figure out a quick, fast, easy motion, like if I pre-comp this and I animated the snake slithering, actually, you probably even puppet pin the snake and then animate it that way. Let's try that. Let's go through this backwards. So I'm going to get rid of this layer. I'll just Actually, there's no need to get rid of it. Like this, we'll stop it right there. We'll get rid of the anchor keyframes. And this is the world's most perfectly drawn snake. And I'm going to do puppet pins on it. So I'm going to put a pin here, there, there. Let's try here and there. Okay, and I'll move my pins backwards because I just realized it was not at the beginning, but that's fine. And then we'll move this way. And then so to save some time, let's just try and copy and paste these keyframes. Pretend that it was perfect. Okay. Lovely. So now we've got some slithering. And now we can animate the anchor point from here, let's say, to there, sure. So we know we want it to start off the screen. Oh, no, that's what's going to happen. All right, so what I'm going to do to troubleshoot that is I will precompose the snake, move all attributes into a new composition, which is the middle button. So now let's try, yep, now it's going to work. Okay, so precomposing it put all the puppet pinning into the precomp so that when I move the anchor point, it's not going to distort the puppet pinning. It's just a juggling act of getting things to do what you want them to do. I'm still going to keep that diagonal motion just for the fun of it to demonstrate all this. And as you can see, like I said, it's just a matter of figuring out how you want things to work and then getting yourself there. It's all about experimenting and playing around. There we go. Okay. So I used the puppet pin to slither the snake, and then I precomposed it and animated the anchor point of that. I could have done anything really to get that to move. I just wanted to show you how you can use the anchor point to rotate and move things. So I'm going to duplicate this precomp, and I'm going to, actually, here's why I'm glad I did it this way. If I move the position, see, now I've got that, and I'm going to make it a little later in the timeline by offsetting it. And so you can see the color of this one, I'm going to change the color of it. Okay, so now I've got two snakes, and I'm going to duplicate this one again, and I'll offset it a little bit more, and let's move this one, say, over here. We'll change the color of that one with the fill effect I just put in. And let's make this a little tighter together, because they're going to be used as a reveal. Right here. Okay, so you got to make sure you've got enough snakes covering up the area, all right? And I'm going to put the type below them. And what I'm going to do, since I want it to be invisible up until this point, is I told you that trick of holding down the Alt key and hitting the bracket next to the letter P. And that's going to trim the in point of that. If you hit the bracket next to that one, that's the out point. So this layer won't show up until then. So the snakes slither on, there's the logo, and then they slither off. That help you out, Jack? You can just hide where your logo or title or whatever credit is by trimming its in point when it's fully covered up and then having that as the reveal. Like such. Now, I'm going to show you something also. So I'm going to pause this, hit save, and I'll make a new composition here. What? Oh, yes, thanks. All right. So puppet pin it, make it move the way you want with the puppet pins, then pre-comp it, and then you can move that composition around the pre-comp round. Okay, so I'm going to draw a person real quick. Wait a sec, let's do, no, wait, let's, instead of that, let me see if I have this file. 1 second. Let me open up Jade's character again, if I still got it. Don't, let me take a look at my notes. I should have figure in here. Okay. Increase my resolution here. All right, I'm going to try and just get rid of this background real fast. I'm going to key out the brighter part, threshold. Okay, and I did not draw this character. All right, so normally you want alpha, excuse me. Normally you're going to want an alpha character, like alpha around it. I'm going to pre-compose this real fast, just at the effect, move all attributes, so that the effect doesn't get in the way. So I'm going to go back to my puppet pin, and I'm going to click at the shoulder, the elbow, the wrist, and the hand, okay? Now this is important, Jack, because I saw you had a Medusa character, and I don't know if you're going to do the character rigging like I showed at the last class, or you're going to puppet pin. But bear in mind, if you're snakes, you can have a bendy type of effect for snakes. That's going to work fine. But the human body, there's a bone between these pins. And that's why when you click and hold down on the puppet pin tool at the top, there's a starch tool. And you could add some starching and change. Let's show the mesh for that. And I'm going to put a starch pin there between those. And now let's see what happens when we move here. See, it's not bending as much. It's not as snake-like. It's holding some rigidity to it. So keep that in mind when you're working with characters that have bones. You want to have starch pins at all the right spots so that you don't get that noodly type of animation when it shouldn't be like that. Anyone have any samples they want to show me of anything that I can break down for you with remainder of lab time? And also, Jack, that was a really good example of a storyboard, because even though it was just a couple panels, I got an idea of what you want to do. So just focus on your artwork and the look and feel of it, and any questions you have about how you want things to move, let me know, and I'll help you with all that. Oh yeah, without a doubt. That's a great question, Jack. So take a look at this character. Like, this is just something I pulled off the internet. You should have as many layers as possible because it gives you more options as an animator. And plus, say this arm I wanted to swing across the body. Well, if it's on its own layer, that's fine, and there's a filled-in body beneath it. So, yes, try and have the limbs separate and things like that. The snakes, I would make very stylized, use the puppet pin, and probably pre-compose those to the head so that when you move the character around, your puppet pinning's already done first, like you saw with my previous example that I'd done. Let me do one more for you real quick, just so that everyone can see what's going to happen here. Like, if I have this rectangle, we'll pretend it's one of the snakes that we're talking about, and I move my pins like such, and I go back, and I go in the opposite direction, and I go again, like this, and like that. Okay, so let's take a look at the motion. So we'll pretend that's a snake or someone listening to a very catchy tune. Watch what would happen. So I've put my pinning in place and I've already, animated. And I'm like, okay, well, I want this to move with the character. So if I hit the P key and I want it to move from here over to here, you'll see what happened is the pins don't move with it anymore. It loses them right after it moves. You see that distortion happening. That's why I was saying get your motion of the snakes looking good and then pre-compose that, hit OK, and then move the pre-com or parent it to whatever you need to. So then I can move like such, and it'll continue the puppet pinning motion plus the motion I want it to be doing. It's all a matter of juggling, and like I said, pre-composing solves most of your issues you're going to run into in After Effects. So pretend you've got the face blinking and stuff like that. I would do the snakes and the head, but no eyes or anything like that, so it's a blank face. And just have more motion than you need, longer than you need. Like, pretend you think the shot's going to be 6 seconds hanging on that character. Animate the snakes for like 12 seconds or 10 seconds, so you've got more than you need. And then when you pre-compose that, then you could put the eyes over that face and have them blinking and move the head around, and you'll have plenty of motion from the snakes. So that's the best way to go about it. Animate more than you need to, pre-compose it, and only have on that what you need, like the snakes parented to the head, but not the mouth or the eyes or the face. So it's a blank head. That way you can animate those separate as you see fit. Like have them blink, have the mouth open and close when you want it to, and then just parent all that to the pre-comp that you have them resting over. And a benefit to using Puppet Pin, I'm going to put in this photo right here. When you've got a character like Jack's going to be doing, and I imagine it's going to be fairly detailed, watch what happens with this person's tie. I'm going to put some pins in. Like that, sure. And remember, it's not just pinning what you want to move, but pinning down what you don't want to move. Okay, I'll take a look at it right now. Okay. All right, so watch it. See, this is one of the reasons why I'm telling you to try puppet pinning Jack, is because the puppet pin will move the textures as well as the character. It'll treat it almost like it's animating pixels. Well, I mean, it is animating pixels. And that's, you know, very useful for what you want to do. So the snakes are going to have scales, maybe some color, and things like that. So puppet pins will help move those textures. Just when you're doing that, click the show mesh and make sure, see, my mesh is a little too big, but you want the mesh to be going past the important parts of the character, but not so big that's going to make your animation look clunky. And the density, the more dense you have this set to, the more polygons and distortion you'll have. Let me lower the density, show you the opposite. See, there's much less there, but a higher, I think 12 is the highest, means I'll get more detail in with that, so you'll have a more realistic looking motion to the snake. Move this like that, and that like that. Turn off my show mesh. And there's the tie moving and keeping the stripe texture. That's why I'm suggesting pins for the snakes. Okay. Let's see. So if I go here, and then I go to there, there's Eric. Okay, there's the storyboard. Let me download that. Now I'm opening up Eric's thing. Here's a little reminder for everybody, just a refresher. Let me fit this to the window. Okay. If you've got a character and it's all set up, one of the things you can do to make it look like you're artificially zooming in or zooming out or having a fake camera in your scene without having to make everything 2.5D or 3D, is to put an adjustment layer with the transform effect applied to that adjustment layer. Because remember, like we said in class, the adjustment layer affects every layer beneath it. So see this guy right here? I'm going to put an adjustment layer in by going new adjustment layer, put it up at the top, and then in effects, I'm going to type transform. I'm going to throw a transform effect on that. And here's your 4 pillars of motion design: position, scale, rotation, and transparency. So I'm going to show you 2 different ways of doing this. So Eric was saying, oh, I'm thinking of starting on the eye and zooming out. So what I'll do is click scale and position. And we're not going to want to do that. Let's zoom in first. All right, so pretend here we are on the head. Now, if I change this over time, let's say the 2-second mark, and I set that scale back to 100%, and let's see, where'd you go? What's going to happen is we'll get a zoom effect because we keyframed that over time, all right? So I'm going to undo that, and I'll do it again and again and again. So here's my initial change right here. And then I want you all to remember this because this is really useful for a lot of things. Instead of using linear keyframes, I'm going to use toggle hold. So I just right clicked and I chose toggle hold keyframe. And then I'm going to go back to my 2-second mark and I'm going to go back to the 100 scaling and change the position to where he originally was. So now what's going to happen is you're going to have a hard cut like you changed from camera to camera. So that's the difference between using linear or easy ease keyframes and using toggle hold keyframes. You'll see that refresh in a second on the screen because I realized I scaled down to 0 instead of 100 and I just fixed it right there. And this will be a demonstration of using hold keyframes so you don't get that zoom in or zoom out. It'll look like a hard camera cut. So it's up to you, Eric, or anyone else who wants to use an adjustment layer to zoom in and out and position around. Do you want to use toggle hold frames and have hard cuts to make it look like camera cuts? Or do you want that slow, gradual zoom out using easy ease or linear keyframes? And I'm just looking for your storyboard in my downloads folder. 1 second, Eric. Just gotta find the file name for it again. Okay, I found it. And I see what you wrote. All right. Let's see. Yes, and like I said before, this is great. Just send me pencil sketches, no matter how rough, so I could look at your storyboards rather than drafting out nice and pretty. It's better to just get moving. This storyboard looks a little bit like a logo design. I think you need... If you can figure out a way to get from the head of the cat with the letters going out the sides of it, it might work. Just really, really push the motion. And what's really going to make this pop, if you can... So, let me show you this real fast. So what Eric has is he has a cat's eye in his storyboard. So I can do composition here. So let's make this round. We'll pretend this is the main eyeball part. And then you've got another shape that is the pupil. Alright, so I just roughed this up real quick. You'll see it in a moment. Alright, and it's almost done catching up to me. So what you'll see in a moment is I've got the white of the eye and then the pupil, And if I've got the anchor point to it basically in the center of the pupil. Now, what I want you to look at here is two different things. First, I'm going to move this from side to side. That's all right. You know, it's nothing spectacular, but could be as looking from side to side. But you can push this one of two ways. I'm going to show you one way. So first I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to position. I'm going to move it over to the side and then back to the middle and then back over to the side again. Let me move these closer together because that's way too slow. So there's no real shortcuts in motion design, especially for final projects. So there's the eye moving, all right? Now, if you want to push this, the one thing you can do, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this pupil just so I have the original to go back to. So don't forget, while this is moving, this is a shape we drew in After Effects, which means we can animate the path of that shape. So if I go over here and then over here, if you want to be really slick about it, you can fake 3D by animating the shape and then we'll copy this original keyframe of what it looked like, move to here, paste that original shape back in, copy that one, paste it right here, and then we'll move over here and we'll do the same thing. We'll change the shape of it a little bit to fake a 3D-ness to it. So let's see the difference between that now. It's subtle, but just doing that little thing gives it some fake curvature. That's one thing you do. Obviously push it further than I did. I'm just showing you, you can move it from side to side and then change the shape of it to look like it's moving through 3D space. That's one thing. Let's try another one. Let's delete these keyframes. And just for the fun of it, I'm gonna try is it CC cylinder? We'll find out. See, this is spherizing it. So you get a really distorted look for going up and down and side to side. Or getting larger and smaller. It's almost giving it like a bulge type of effect. So let's try that. We'll move the position in Z, go forward a little bit, move it up to where it was, probably 0. Like that. And then let's see if we can, if it's going to distort from side to side with the sphere. Look, so that looks. And let's see, render the outside, render the inside. You've got lots of choices. We'll try full. And if this had a color to it, you could even adjust the lighting of it. But let's see what that looks like. And I've forgotten to click the proper keyframes because I'm silly. So let's do that. So we'll go from here to there. I didn't click the stopwatch. We'll click here. We'll go over to the side a little bit. Then we'll go back to the center. And then we'll go over to the side, the other side. Let's see what that looks like. See, it's not giving us as much curvature as cheating and doing it by editing the path, but I do like the, I think this effect really sings on the up and down. It looks like it's moving around a spherized thing. Now we'll keep this effect the way it is. We're not happy with it. Let's change the radius. That might give us a better look to it. That's doing a little bit better. So playing around with the radius will obviously make it larger and smaller and whatnot, but I think you might get a better result with the first effect I showed you. Okay, let me take a look at it. 1 second. I see your comment, Carmen. Jump back to the student mail. Did you send it through? Oh wait, here we go. Don't forget, you can put it in the Google Drive folder I gave you. Let me download all these. There's a lot of JPEGs. I'm taking a look at it right now. Is yours the one with the cookie thing, Carmen? So is yours the one with the cookie jar? Okay, and now I see where the Michael Goblin thing came from. I thought that was some pet nickname I'd been given throughout the semester. Alright, so let me try and figure out the chronology of these, because I've got their file names, but they're not numbered. So I've got this up in the background. I'm going to move the chat window over here so I can see both at the same time. All right. So which one is the first of your storyboard? Alright, so I'm looking at the storyboard. There's that. So will there be, oh wait. Right, okay. So will there be motion in these, it almost looks like it's a photo album. So is it going to be like almost like an animated photo album, sort of like Harry Potter style? where it's, and then the camera's moving around within the photo album. Title card. Yeah, I see the title card. So is that what you're going to be doing? Is it going to be like going from photo to photo, almost like a photo album or a comic book, and there's going to be motion in it and it's going to look like it's framed within something? Or is it going to be full frame? Because if these are stills, that's a good idea. Okay, yeah, these should be animated. There's got to be motion to them. Yeah, so think about that. Is it going to be like a photo album, but the images are moving inside the frames laid out in the book, and possibly you have the camera moving from photo to photo? Yeah, okay. Also think about this. Let's pretend, or so you got the one thing where there's like the shredded on a skateboard and prom 93. It's funny because my prom would have been 92, so he's about my age, so he's a wonderful human being. Let's say you've got the skateboarding and then the prom one. With the prom photo in the bottom corner that's going to be seen second, you might have some subtle motion going on or something, like, you know, the eyes blinking, the curtain in the background swaying or something like that, while you're focusing on the main animation of the skateboarder. And then when you go from the skateboarder to that next photo, there could be some complementary motion going on, like the hair still waving in the skateboard photo. So there's something still going on, but it's not distracting. It's just keeping the viewer interested with some life to the image after the main animation's done. That's something to consider as well. And if you're going to be doing this, think about how you're going to animate it. Are you going to break it down like a character and rig it, like, you know, the elbows and the arms, or are you going to try and puppet pin it? That's what you want to try and figure out for your motion. And also remember, this is going to be like between 10-15 seconds. You got a lot of slides here as I'm looking at it. So focus on, why won't this, let me go back to there. Focus on the ones you know you can execute the best, and don't try and worry about all of them, because it's going to be a lot of animating. I'm glad you like the idea. And everyone also remember, like I said, this will be about, you know, 10-15 seconds or so, rather than 30 seconds of like two animations that are about 10-15 seconds. So focus on a very tight, try and get as close to 15 seconds as possible, but, you know, at least an outstanding 10 seconds. Okay. And with character rigging, like we covered the last class, I'm just going to do another little refresher from that lab time. This would be the shoulder, and I'm going to, I'm going to put my anchor point up at the top. Why did that happen? That's wild. I've never seen that happen before. Okay, good. And then I'll call this, call that shoulder. So I've already got that. I'll duplicate it, and I'll call this one forearm. And then I'll just move it down a little bit. and my anchor's already where I want it to be. And I'll change the color on this just to make it easier for you to see the difference. That. So what I would do is I would parent the forearm to the shoulder. Then this way, if I rotate the forearm, I can move the forearm independently. And if I move the shoulder, the forearm's going to move with it, but I can also, one second. So I've got the shoulder rotating there, and I can independently rotate the forearm while it's parented to there. Such. Yep. Yeah, like I said, think about the best ones where you can showcase your illustration talent and what would be the most interesting to animate. There's the world's greatest hand. Those people are jealous they can't draw a hand that spectacular. And I'm going to put my anchor at the top by the hand, and I'm going to position the hand where I want it. And I'll parent the hand to the forearm. So I'm going to put that down there. There we go. And that's going to move along as we want to. And we could also rotate it as we see fit because it's independent even though it's parented. Just like that. Yeah, thank you. It is a top tier hand. But, you know, that's character rigging in a nutshell. Break it into the pieces you need and think about how things are parented together. And just remember, everything will basically be end up where the body is. And also, let's push this just a little bit further, just for the fun of it, because that's what we do here with Lab Time. I'm just showing you different things to consider when you're animating. Let me clean this up a bit. Make a folder for all my sequences. Always work neatly. Label your stuff as much as possible so other people can work on it pretty drama-free. And one second. Okay, here we go. Alright, so this will help some of you with your characters as well. So let's pretend I am going to go to my modes. Here's my switches. You always click switches and modes to go back and forth between them. Here's my modes. I'm going to change this blending mode to luminosity. Okay. Now, let's pretend I want this texture to be with the shoulder. So the fast and easy way of doing that is I put it below the shoulder and I use the shoulder above as an alpha matte. Okay, but watch what happens. If I don't parent the texture, you'll see the texture moving. Well, I mean, you'll see the arm moving through the texture, and that's not very realistic. So let's say I'm like, I love this part of the texture. What I do then is I select my texture and I parent it to that shoulder. So as the arm moves, the texture stays the same, which it would and we still use the alpha matte of the shape above. Now I'm going to kick this up one notch even more. I'm going to duplicate that shoulder one more time, turn it back on, and I'm going to change its blending mode to color. So now I've kept the color of it plus the texture that I've got below that's using this alpha matte and parented to it. It's all about trying to push yourself and find ways to make your artwork look as interesting as possible, but then work the way you want it to. You might need to use alpha mattes to show what you want to show, and then use blending modes to get it looking the way you want. So you'll see the screen refresh in a second. So there it is with the texture on it and the alpha matte applied and it parented to the arm. So we've got this going like this, like that, and then we'll bring down the title. And also remember, if you select multiple keyframes and you've got the playhead over them, you can move them up and down together. It's like I can grab these, select them all. Okay. Then I could add some overshoot to that, maybe a little squash and stretch. It's all about pushing your ideas. And you've got the expressions that I sent earlier in class. Check the mail real quick. Okay, no one else wrote me. And I've noticed with the 6 o'clock, maybe it's because of the newscasters or whatever, but 6 o'clock is pretty rough to get on to YouTube. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to log on early and just start the stream early and then edit it down like I did before the day afterward, just to make things easier for everybody, so that everything's up and running and streaming fine before you even get here. Any other questions on how to get some animations done for your upcoming final project? I've already got the anchor point, looks like, on the bottom, yep, for each of these. So I've got some time just to give a quick reminder about squash and stretch. So this one will be impacting right here. Just focus on them one at a time. Turn the scale off. Is that where it stops moving? Yep. Let's say, so be right before the impact will be where the squash is the stretch is the most. So if I go, let's go 145, and I'm going to go down 45, so that'd be 55, because stretch is up and in and squash is down and out. So here's where the squash happens. That's going to be the opposite number wise. That, and then we'll go forward a little bit and just go back to 100. And then rather than do all that, I'll just copy and paste it onto these other ones. And then let's push this a little bit further because we've got a few more minutes. So I'm going to select these three, pre-compose them together, call it title. Oops, I did not move all attributes into a new layer, so let me make sure I do that again. Move all attributes, there we go, perfect. Put the texture back in again. Then I'll move that over to here. And I'll use the title as an alpha matte. And this time, moving through a texture and the texture being parented to it. And are you saying through Google Drive or through student email? Oh, okay, so I'm seeing a bunch of photos. I'm assuming these are Gabby's. Let me take a look, see if I'm right. Yep, it is Gabby's, okay. Great, and I don't know if you put those in your student folder or if you made a folder and then shared it with me, but just remember, Gabby, make sure your photos are as layered as possible so that you have full range over what's going on as an animator. Okay, if that's what you want to do, you can email them. I can't stop you. No one can stop you from doing that. Just trying to find something real quick. Yes. That's a good way to view it. Got a minute. I'm just trying to find something real fast to use. Okay, here we go. Let's do this. A moment while I load up this image. And just put it on the desktop. It'll be faster and easier to find that way. Okay, so this is just a photo I found online. I'm going to load it up and test this out real quick. Okay, so you should see it in a second. Alright, it's going to be loaded up in a moment, and what I'm putting on this photo is an effect called CC Light Rays, and again, the little crosshairs tool is invaluable so that you can just click and drag where you want things to go. So I'll show you, like, I'll move to the 2-second mark and I'll use the crosshairs on the center that I've already clicked the stopwatch to animate. And I'll have the light move down the image the way that I want in the area I want. So these are things you can look for that'll give you some play when you're animating. Just find where light sources might be, and you can even change the color. If possible. Nope, it's not letting me do that. Oh, here we go. Color from source. So I can click on the color back here, turn that back on. So it's just a matter of playing around, and you can change the color of that glow, get a more supernatural look. So that's just click on that. See? It's all about just playing around and experimenting, trying to push your ideas. Adding a little bit of life to a still image. Time is okay, so good. I'm glad you're there, Gabby. So look at your images, look at where lights can come from, and that's another way of pushing this design. And also, if you had some like fog in there, that would maybe interact with it. That'd be nice. You could use a particle system for that. There's lots of things you can do, but like I said, try and have as many elements moving around in your images as possible. And just play around. Like I said, I didn't even know, like, you know, color from source. I clicked that off and then changed the color of the light because I didn't want it to be white. So it's all a matter of playing around and saving your work frequently so you don't lose anything. And when you're all working, make sure you put everything in Google Drive so that I can, like, the photos, the fonts, the videos, anything you're using, so that when I look at your Adobe After Effects projects, I can look at your keyframing, see your work, and help you out virtually while we're all shut down. So this way everyone can keep the ball moving forward and have some very nice portfolio pieces for when you do get done school. Any other questions before we head out? And one of the things we learned tonight is that green is the best color, not purple. Everyone knows that. And, you know, we learned that I can draw an amazing photorealistic hand in a matter of seconds. Also, remember when you work with light effects to work at 32 bits per channel, you can change your bit mode by Alt or Option clicking on the BPC next to the trash can in the project panel. You hold down Alt where you click there, and you can go from 8-bit to 16-bit to 32-bit BPC bits per channel. Alright, well, I will see everybody Monday. Hope you all have a safe weekend, and everybody just stay safe, make smart decisions, and write me if you have any... Wait, what did Joe say? Okay, wait, let me see 1 second. Of course I gotta see it. Okay, so there's 4 of them. 1 second. Oh, and this is brilliant. You numbered them. Thank you. That makes my job a lot easier. Very good. See, that's learning on the fly. Alright, so let's take a look at this. bottom. Here we go. Here's a bird flying over homes. Okay, kisses. Interesting. Okay, all right, I get what you're saying here. Okay. Just make sure you add as much interest as possible, like what's in the background as the bird's flying through. I love it. It's a really clever idea of, let's say you're following the journey of the bird from the beginning to the end and is going through the different story settings. I like that. That's pretty slick. What will help you is copying and pasting keyframes for your bird motion, so you're not doing a billion keyframes or even using expressions. Let me show you something real fast. Let me go to a new one. Go fast here. And I'm going to make a bird wing real quick. There's my bird wing. Okay. So the bird wing, let's do this with puppet pinning first, just so I can do it quick and easy. So I'm moving forward. There's going to be an arc this way, and then let's just pretend this is what the bird wing flap looks like. I hit the U key, show my keyframes. If I've got it going in one direction, I can copy them, paste them, right click and choose Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse, and do the same thing. Select the other keyframes, copy, paste. Oops. I was hitting the wrong key. Right click, Keyframe Assistant, Time Reverse. And that's going to, I'm not doing it to all of them, but you know, you get the idea. Or if you do using paths and you animate the paths, either way will work. Well, I got the idea of what you're trying to do. That's the important thing. Okay, so we're going to end it there. Thank you everyone for showing me some of your storyboards and some of your ideas. Like I said, push them as much as possible because it's the final project and you want to have something very good to show for it. So again, have a great weekend and stay safe out there. And contact me if you have any questions. Yeah. Very good. I love that term. All right. Have a good one, everybody.